Hey guys, welcome to today's Ask a Grower live stream here with Gabriella Plants. My name's Shane, owner and founder of Gabriella Plants, and today Brett's also here with me, head grower and botanist here.
Hello, everyone.
You're fully Christmased out, I do have to say, like mad respect.
Like, 'tis the season.
You got the hat going, you got the whole thing. So tell me what's been up in your world.
Ooh, oh my goodness, so many good things are going on in the greenhouse. It may be cold outside in a lot of the world, but that doesn't mean that we're slowing down.
Did you see the feet of snow?
It is crazy.
It is amazing what even just a state or two north of Central Florida get as far as weather patterns.
I mean, it's supposed to be cold this weekend here, and I mean, cold for us is like, it's going to be mid-40s,
yeah,
right?
40s
Which,
is or
I know,
cold,
yeah,
yes.
we don't want to. We understand it could be a lot worse, but that still means that we need to heat the greenhouses and keep the plants happy and healthy.
Of course. And yes, we can see your chat as well. So if you want to put in where you're tuning in from, we have some different things planned to kind of show in the greenhouse, hopefully later, if technology cooperates with us, of course. But tell me what else is new in like plants here, because I know it's been a minute.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we haven't really just riffed like this in a while.
I know.
With everyone
It's
tuning
new,
in.
right?
There's lots of things going on. I mean, not only do we have new plants being planted from cuttings, which, oh my goodness, we could talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
We have so many
just,
new things
just what I
coming in.
did this week would take us
with new
quite
plants.
some time to get through.
So, I mean, so many new philodendron coming on. I mean, we talk about this all the time, but Shane and I love being able to just take a handful of plants and propagating and multiplying and getting more and more out of those first couple plants and being able to share them with everyone.
There's no more rewarding feeling than knowing you only had one of something. It's like doubling your money, but with plants.
But with
like,
plants.
If you could have one of anything, and then suddenly, in a matter of, I guess not suddenly, 3 months of patience or whatever else, have two of the thing you love. I mean, I'd take it every day.
It's a reward.
So,
as growers, it's like one of the fundamental joys of being a grower.
That's awesome. Well, if you do have any questions that we can answer, you're welcome to put them in the chat. We would love to answer them. But you mentioned some of these hybrids and things. One of the things I found shocking just in the process, because I've learned a lot about it since we started doing internal breeding here, and also, like you mentioned, just always looking to take a plant either and create a new one, which is a lot of the breeding, but also some of the ones we've just been able to, because they self themselves are grown from seed, get those to customers as well. I didn't realize that philodendron like inflows pack that many seeds. It was how many seeds?
Oh my goodness. So we harvested, so there was a philodendron hybridization that I did I took pollen from a philodendron radiatum, mature, large form, and put it on a philodendron runwowii. And after about 2 months, those berries were ripe, and we harvested probably 12,000 seeds that came from that infructescence.
12,000.
Yes.
You heard that, guys. 12,000 seeds.
And each of those seeds is smaller than a grain of rice, probably the third of a size of a grain of rice.
I posted it in, I forget if it was the behind the scenes Facebook group that we have, but you're welcome to join if you're not already in there. Or maybe it was an Instagram story, but one of the pictures that Zach had taken, our media director, of the seeds, and that was two of the replies to the story or whatever, like rice. You're soaking rice?
Nope. And it's baby philodendrons. And so they have, since we sowed those seeds, it's been about 3.5 months. And so they've all sprouted. We've started bumping them up into 4-inch pots, but that's a really exciting cross for me as a breeder, because as far as I can find online or, through reaching out to other breeders, that cross has never been done before. Radiatum X Renwowii. So essentially these seedlings that we have growing are the first of their kind, and because of that, we don't necessarily know what they're going to mature, grow into.
Sure.
So if you're not familiar with those plants, essentially radiatum has really, really lobed, fingered leaves.
If only we could zoom in on your tattoos
I know,
on your hand. For those of you that don't know, he definitely has tattoos of different leaf shapes on the tops of his knuckles. But helpful when he can just school you in instantly with just it looks like this,
plant
Awesome.
leaf morphology lesson at my fingertips.
Yeah, at any moment. Anyways, you were saying.
And so radiate them with really finger-like leaves crossed with Renwowii, which has like entire, meaning not lobed, like long paddle-shaped leaves. So I'm hoping that the genetics from both of those creates something similar to like a jungle boogie, where it's like a long leaf with some lobes, which will be really cool.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting for the plants to continue to mature.
How big are they now?
I mean, leaves are only probably an inch at max right now.
Okay,
They're still really small. Yeah.
So probably what, 6 months?
Yeah, probably, especially now that it is colder, they're going to be a little bit slower. Probably 4 to 6 months before we start to see like a true form of what it's going to be.
Well, speaking of cold, we actually did have a question from Smarty Marty Plants. During the winter, if your plants are growing under a grow light, do you continue to fertilize throughout the winter? I've heard both yes and no.
Okay, that is a great question. And as Shane mentioned, we are here. That is the purpose of this.
Absolutely.
Today is for your questions, so please keep them coming. My answer to that question is, as long as you are still seeing active growth on your plant, you are good to continue fertilizing.
That's smart.
Basically, when they say don't fertilize in winter, that is in correlation with the plants being dormant and slowing down.
Correct.
But if you're growing in artificial conditions where they aren't necessarily subjected to like seasonal periods, and you are still seeing growth, definitely go ahead and keep fertilizing.
And to piggyback off that, the question that she asked was if they had, a grow light. That's half of the question. She volunteered that they have a grow light.
Right.
I would say, what are the two things that happen in winter that would normally lead somebody to say, not the time to fertilize? And that's the lack of light because of the shorter days and all that, and the average temperature.
Exactly.
So again, inside your home, if it was really cold, which is going to be a lot of, like you said, if it goes dormant or if it doesn't, if your average room temperatures, if you run your house 15 degrees cooler in the winter, because that's what you heat to, then yeah, the plants are going to pick up on that. If it's relatively the same the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to know any difference. Even if you are growing under a grow light, you do want to make sure that they aren't necessarily too close to a window where that cold could be, seeping through. Or plants can be very temperamental depending on the species to drafts. So even if you're growing under a grow light, but it's near a door where you're opening and closing that door and letting in those cold drafts in, that can still affect your plants.
Right. Or that you keep, the room heats up in the, the middle of the day because you have some greenhouse effect happening through the windows or whatever, but it's not a room you heat at night. That's another, I guess, thing to keep in mind.
Of course.
Light is half of what you're trying to offset. Temperatures is also how plants would know to go into dormancy as well.
Of course.
So thank you for that question. Yeah, really good. This is interesting. Well, let's go in order then. Tree epiphytes, which is a cool username. That sounds like
I love it.
I was going to say, it sounds like something you would like. Can you talk about leaf melt?
Okay. That's a great subject. So leaf melt, generally, I assume that they are relating this to leaf melt that is in correlation with a bacterial infection, most likely. So what I mean by that is there are some bacteria that affect plants that one of their symptoms is these bacteria, which spread through the vascular system of the plant, will get into the leaf tissue and make the leaf tissue deteriorate.
Right.
And do it in a way that basically bursts the cells, that then causes the cells to quickly deteriorate, that the plant shows to us as like this melt. It turns to like goop or mush.
Correct.
And so if it is bacterial leaf melt, what you would want to do, even if you don't have any pesticides to try to combat it, is let the plant dry out. Usually the first thing I would recommend is let the plant have like a hard dry out.
And increase your airflow in general. Like not
Absolute-
only the
yeah,
soil drying out,
absolutely.
but you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to dry it out. If it's in a terrarium, you want to, or any place where you're kind of previously were trapping humidity to be there. Maybe is a time to, at least while you're dealing with that, take it out.
Right.
The other thing though, just because you're not wrong, and I want to hear an answer for other things you could do to help the bacteria, but also just there are times, the only other time that comes to my head where a plant turns mush and not crispy is cold. Because
Yes.
if it's, and as you've explained to me before many a times, it's actually the same essentially thing happening.
Correct.
It's exploding leaf tissue in the same way that the bacteria would, but by kind of forceful
Right. So
damage to the tissue.
as you may or may not know, water when it freezes expands. And so plant cells have cell walls that are somewhat rigid as opposed to, animal cells that just have a membrane and don't have that wall. Because of that, the water that is in every plant cell is contained in a vacuole. So these vacuoles that are filled with water or liquid, if that gets to a point where it begins to freeze and expands, it basically pushes through that cell wall that then bursts those cell walls that then cause that same melt.
So yeah,
Symptom.
my point is it could be either one, but if
Right.
it is bacteria, so if you haven't though had your plants outside or anything where the cold could be an option, are there some solutions that people at home should know besides letting it dry out? Is there anything else they could try
For
to
cold?
apply? No, for the mush on a
for
leaf.
bacterial. There are definitely, I would say, over the counter, meaning you don't need a pesticide license. Different antibacterial drenches you can give to your plants. Probably the most common one is going to be like copper.
Yeah, that's
Copper
where I'd
is
go
generally
to.
used as a fungicide, but it will work to negate bacterial effects.
Correct.
I would just do your research and look up basically bacterial plant drenches. A drench means that instead of just spraying your plant, what you're going to do is you're actually going to pour it into the soil or into the substrate. And then that pesticide is then taken up through the roots of the plant into the vascular system and distributed through the plant, and then basically lives within the plant's system almost like an antibiotic.
It got the vaccine.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hopefully that answers your question, trees epiphyte. So awesome. Somebody just now asked, are you going to make more of the fern staghorn plaques?
Yes. Those seem to be really, really popular. So if you're not familiar with what they're talking about, I have been creating in small batches these staghorn ferns, Platycerium elephantotus.
They're so cute.
Plaques, mounts. They're like 3 inches wide. They're super, super cute. And so, yes, they've been selling really well. Customers seem to really like them. And I mean, all of our plants here are, grown with love and care, but that mount that is, literally painstakingly wrapped by hand by me, every single one.
Yeah, I came in
has
Tuesday
that-
of last week or whatever,
Yep.
and you were just sitting there like, how's your day going? I'm just making
wrapping
some
mounts,
plaques.
is really, really, I love being able to share that.
But while we have it on set, you also made a much bigger mount.
Yes.
And they probably won't have seen anything to do with it, but it is a video coming soon. So there's a
Yes.
teaser that you only got by being here.
This is a living wreath. So this is an asplenium bird's nest fern hurricane that I just created a living wreath with living ornaments on it, and a handmade bow and everything. So
yeah, he's got these Talansi on it. Yeah, wait for the video. It's going to be amazing. I happened to walk in on them filming it yesterday. So, and if you think it took you a little while to do the ones that are in the greenhouse,
Right.
painstaking, that was
This
a little bit of a
was- oh,
chore.
yeah.
A little bit of a chore, but hey, it looks beautiful, and I
Thank
love
you.
the lights. It's the perfect little.
Thank you. So yes, I will be making more of those. Great
So
question.
he will be making more. The other funny thing about those plaques, it was so funny. You just like, our team members here are fantastic, but it's always just as like a human experience thing. I really like just hearing somebody's raw, like just thoughts when they first see something, because that can just be so different,
Of course.
to every single person. Because one of our shippers, Caroline, saw that and then instantly was just like, oh, a Christmas ornament.
Yep.
And I would have like not thought about putting that on the tree. So like Yeah, amazing. I think people are getting into them for a variety of different uses this time of year.
We actually hosted at our Gabriel Plant Shop location a event where we were doing an epiphyte mounting holiday ornament workshop. And so it definitely is nice to be local here in Oviedo, Florida, because then not only do you get to check out the live streams that we do here on YouTube, but you get to come and attend a lecture or workshop in person taught by me.
Yeah. Brett's actually there.
Yeah.
No, but it's awesome. And there's always amazing feedback. It's also, I've just gotten used to it now, but, he would have something going on, a workshop from 7, it's listed 7:30 to 8:30 or whatever. So I'm kind of assuming like I'll get the recap of like, hey, it went so well, sometime around 8:30. And I know it went super well when the text is coming through at like, 9:15 or whatever. Like they just had more questions. What can I say? I love plants. And we just kept doing it. So much like we're doing right now, which is why we wanted to get back to doing this on YouTube. And we're so glad you guys are here. Keep the questions coming. There are a couple more we can get to.
All right, let's do it.
One, which I know has a commercial grower answer, but Keystone Gun Dogs on YouTube says, how can I get my peace lily to bloom?
Ooh, okay. So Spathiphyllum floribundum most likely is the species and genus that he is referring to by peace lily. They are in the aroid family, Araceae, and so they are sold very commonly as like a care plant. So they're like a hospitality plant. So you'll see them a lot as gifts, get well soon gifts, anything like that. They are great in low light situations and they grow okay in low light situations. But if you want your peace lily to bloom, the number one recommendation I have besides fertilizer is increased light.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean full sun. That just means like bright, indirect light.
And it should also be noted that people's expectations should at least be informed by when you do go. They're most popular in the springtime, without a fact. Because the other thing you were saying, like different gifts and things, churches will use them in a lot of, like it's a big Easter floral.
Easter, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day floral thing. So, but a lot of the commercial growers, the ones that you may see at Lowe's, Home Depot that are blooming or wherever you may purchase your plants, have a lot of blooms maintained at once.
Correct.
And that's not just because they went out there and increased the light a little bit. They actually use a commercial hormone that's applied to the plant, right?
A PGR, so a plant growth regulator, that is specifically for floral production. So
gives the plant a little hint.
Yeah, as a commercially grown spathiphyllum, that is a widely used and widely accepted practice in producing spathiphyllum, is essentially treating the crops with these floral type PGRs to make them bloom, because they are beautiful with just green leaves, but the end consumer wants them with lots of blooms.
And they not only want them with lots of blooms, they want them with lots of blooms all at the same time.
Yes.
Like the condensing, we talk about like internally as a company and in the industry, especially now serving as a board member FNGLA, the action chapter and stuff, how seasonal like our entire industry is. Like right now, when you have tons of snow on your front porch, you're less likely, especially if you're new, if you're somebody who knows that we can safely ship year round, that's one thing. But if you're somebody who's dabbling or, not a hardcore plant, collector, but just somebody who does like to have fresh living things in their home, which is also a completely valid reason to buy houseplants.
Oh, yeah.
But the spath sales, again, Mother's Day, Easter, the amount that they could hypothetically and potentially sell at every garden center on those 2 weekends or weeks of the year is probably half of, probably not that high, but it's a huge concentration. So if you want to get 10,000 of them to all bloom at the same time, you kind of go with a more concrete answer. So, but yeah, increasing light and fertilizer, of course.
Because as a homeowner, as a consumer, you may not have access or interest in using a PGR. We're not saying that's necessary. You can easily get them to bloom. I would say make sure you're fertilizing, increase light.
Yeah, the only thing is they may just not all bloom at the same time. But the other benefit is you may have more consistent blooms, because once they use that and all those blooms fade, that plant will take a moment before it's going to bloom again.
I would call it like a boom and bust type situation. Exactly.
So you'll have more consistent production not using something like that.
Yes, and also you would be flowering it naturally. Not that PGRs aren't natural. They are natural chemicals that a plant produces. You're just taking a synthetic version of it and overloading the system of the plant when you apply it artificially like that. Whereas, yes, if you get your plant to bloom without that, it is going to be more natural and more consistent.
Right. All right. So we're trying to answer as many of your questions. So
and
add
as
more
thoroughly as we can.
She said the peace lily does have one bloom. I did move her closer to the southeast exposure and gave her a bloom burst fertilizer instead.
Nice.
Yep, a big thing to do.
Perfect.
And of the regular fertilizer that I use for my other plants, bloom fertilizer is a great step.
Yep.
Give the plant the nutrients it needs for the task that you're trying to make it do.
I love it. I feel like they're doing everything right.
Yeah, sounds like you're right on the money.
Yep.
So great job there. There's another question here. Let me find it. What is the best fertilizer to use at home? We get this question quite a bit in the intro to houseplants, where you kind of go over all the different substrates and the fertilizer and different things like that. But here we can tell them what we use here, but a lot of it, we can tell them that. Yeah,
I mean, so to break fertilizer down to like its main components, essentially there are macro and micronutrients that every plant needs to be able to function physiologically correctly and do normal growth processes. These fertilizers specifically water-soluble fertilizers that we add to our water when we do our watering regimen have different amounts of those macro and micronutrients. So the question of which fertilizer is best, essentially you're choosing which ratio of these nutrients is best to apply.
Correct.
So the three main ones in every fertilizer are going to be NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus.
Right.
The general, just across the board, fine fertilizer to use is 10-10-10 or 20-10-20. And so those are going to be probably the most common ones for you to find.
And by the way, if it's 10, if we're saying 10-10-10 and it's 9-9-10, the difference between small differences in the numbers don't matter as much as a proportion to the number. So if it's 10-10, that shows the amount of difference of the lacking of that middle number. But if it's 8-8-8 or 9-9-9, it all still works.
So I would say so each of those macronutrients plays a different role depending on what you want your plant to try to do. If you're just looking for overall healthy, happy foliar growth, nitrogen, the N, is the biggest factor.
Right.
So as long as it is solid in the amount of nitrogen it has, you'd be fine. So 10-10-10, 20-10-20 is great. If you're looking for specifically blooming or something, you would want to use a fertilizer that has a higher P or K percentage. And those will typically be sold as the other
bloom
as a
series,
bloom booster type.
Foliage or grow, and then normally bloom are the two kind of retail labels.
Exactly.
The other thing is what works best for you. Some people find it's a lot easier. I think we've heard from throughout different customers and people we've interacted with at aeroid shows and everything else. I mean, if you're in LECA, you're obviously not going to be able to use a granular, so there are going to be some limitations and some things that are going to work best just based on what works best for you. If you tend to water things a lot, and it's easier to remember or regulate how often you're fertilizing by just mixing in with the water, that's an option. If you rather not have to think about it and you water less frequently or just want to be able to, water on top of the plant and use something like what we use internally, the NutriCoat like time release fertilizer, which has kind of a coating to prevent the burning and that kind of thing, and just releases small amounts of nutrients over time every time it's watered and moisture comes across the coating of the pellet. That's another great option too, but it is going to somewhat depend on what you're doing for different ones. In my mind, we've definitely, I think with our usage of NutriCoat to liquid, a lot of it is also pot size. If we have something hanging up in the air, which if we go out to the greenhouse at some point, but when we have baskets in the air, those are getting watered by a dripper. So it makes it easy to just make sure the dripper is near some fertilizer, and it will continually readjust. But on a little teeny pot where you don't have a huge surface, area to really spread any type of granular fertilizer, some of the Hoyas don't really leave you a whole lot of room in the 3-inch pot or whatever, then it can also just be what's easier to administer to which different plants, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't, every plant in your collection doesn't have to be watered the same or fertilized the same. They can definitely be different.
That's a great answer.
One person that somebody asked, as a follow-up, would the bloom fertilizers have that same chemical that is present when growers spray spathiphyllums, or is that just
a great clarification? And no, they will not. Bloom boosting fertilizers just have a different ratio of macro micronutrients that will promote natural formation of that PGR floral chemical in the plant, but it doesn't have any synthetic form of that hormone itself in the fertilizer.
It's the plant version of eating a ton of spaghetti to carb overload before a run or something. But that's basically what you're doing. Yeah, if that's in front of you, then the plant knows what's up next. So that's awesome. If you have any more questions, feel free to drop them into chat.
These have been great.
Right? Like, very good questions. There's a lot of just thank you. So excited you guys are doing this. We like being here. This is easy. Somebody else asked, are there going to be any variegated Scindapsus added? I don't think you would call the one that we have that's all silver.
Ooh, no, it's either platinum or silver hero you have, right?
Yeah, I think I technically have one of each, but I think the ones that we are silver hero is, I believe.
So no variegated Scindapsus, but we do have new Scindapsus.
Yeah, we do have new Scindapsus. And we have those new pothos too. If you haven't seen that video on YouTube, go check that out.
Definitely go check out that video. We got in 5 different types of pothos plant, and this isn't your pothos, as in the common name for epipremnum. These are true pothos. There's actually a genus in the aroid family called pothos that are completely different from epipremnum, that look completely different, grow in completely different parts of the world. And we finally got in some real pothos.
And they look different. Like, I saw the ones you chopped up. And you gave that other plant a haircut too. I saw that. Yeah, there's tons of new stuff over, especially at the Brooks greenhouse. Like, oh man, there's a lot of new stuff. And I was telling Hunter the other day, like, if this goes on a few more weeks, I'm gonna need a lot more name tags like around here, because I'm gonna mess this all up real quick. Brett's always keeping me on my toes, for sure. So. Doesn't seem like we have another question right now. I know that we wanted to at least try today, technically, if you wanted to show off a few things in the greenhouse. We wanted to try a new kind of technology there. If for some reason it doesn't work, you'll be back with me until we figure out how to tell Brett that it didn't work. But if you want to go hop to that, actually, before we go real quick, or before you head out there to the greenhouse, go ahead and
well, let's talk about, how about I tease the people with some Anthurium breeding that I've been doing? How about that?
Listen, I want to know.
So, all right. So I'm going hard in this breeding. Okay. I think that plant people want to continually have the newest, coolest thing.
Yeah.
And as a grower, we have a couple different options when it comes to creating or propagating, producing new plants. We can either grow it from tissue culture, we can grow it from cuttings, and in both of those situations, that is relying on a plant that already exists. And so I kind of feel that as a very valid third avenue, we can be hybridizing and breeding and creating these plants that have yet to exist, which is really, really cool.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And the cool thing is, we don't even know what that will be when doing it at all.
And I mean, also when doing this, so I would say currently in the Anthurium game right now, when it comes to hybridizing, people are really, really after the silvery venation. That people want a really colorful leaf. What I'm trying to create in my breeding program is interesting leaf shapes. So if I can get it silvery and glittery and colorful, of course that's a plus. But I want a really weird looking leaf. I just want it to be crazy. And when it comes to Anthurium breeding, So Anthuriums as a genus have the largest amount of species per genus of all the genera in the aroid family.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's a lot of them.
Lots of options.
Lots of options. And so in that genus, with all of those hundreds of species, those species are broken up into subgenera, or essentially categories. I believe it's currently 12 different categories. And so they say that each of those subgenera categories are distinct and separate enough from each other that they aren't able to hybridize with each other. So, if you're going to tell me that I can't do it, I'm going to try.
Yep, that's the bread I know.
Yep, I'm going to try. And so, usually a lot of these anthuriums that have different shaped leaves are in different groups.
Right.
And so I'm trying to just throw the pollen on it and let's see if it takes. It's also interesting that now I've been at this for a while, that if the cross doesn't work, that Anthurium will abort that inflow that I tried the cross on pretty quickly. Usually within a week or 2 weeks, the plant knows instantly, no, I'm not messing with this. This is not for me. It's not going to work out. And it just cuts it off.
It's fascinating.
Which is really interesting. Yeah, really interesting.
And saves you the headache of finding out, 6 months later it didn't work out or whatever.
Did it not work?
Hey, thanks for at least letting me know. I'll take the fact that I failed, but I'd rather know now.
And so also with that, a lot of the times try again, but it may not always work. I have reserved myself and not let my hopes get up too much, just to save myself from the disappointment. But so finally, now that the seeds have germinated, I am pretty excited to share that. So Shane, I believe it's the largest leaf blade we have on any plant. It's not largest leaf, but largest leaf blade of any plant we have in our greenhouses is Shane's Anthurium pendulifolium. So you measured it. It was about 5 feet, right?
It went over 5 feet by the
so
time
over
it was finished.
5 feet long, this leaf. Back in April, I put pollen from both Anthurium digitatum, which has a digitate-shaped leaf, and Anthurium reflexinervium, which has really cardboard, rigid leaves. I put pollen from both of those on the Anthurium pendulifolium inflorescence, and either both or one of those pollens was successful. And so we've had seeds forming since April. And so finally this week I harvested the last of the berries that formed. I got the seeds out of those berries and planted those seeds. And now we have seedlings sprouting from that cross.
Really? That's awesome.
They're still just put out their, the first round put out their first leaf. So, I mean, it's a normal cordate shaped, just heart-shaped leaf. So we still have to wait for them to mature. But just the idea of taking this 5 foot long strap-like leaf and crossing it with something like digitatum that has lobes,
right.
Who even knows what that will look like?
And the crazy thing is they could within that batch also be different. It could end up just being one of the many seeds harvested that did something cool, and the rest of them just ended up looking like dad or mom.
Exactly.
And
that's basic biology, Punnett square genetics is, you have all these different genes going on. And so when you're doing these crosses, the way that they end up playing out their phenotype and their morphological characteristics could be completely different. And so who knows?
I'm excited to see what happens. I know that those are in my backyard, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye on them.
Not only did I do that cross, but I also did another cross with your pendulifolium that I have been waiting to share because I wasn't sure the berries were going to form, but the berries are finally forming.
Interesting.
But so that first cross I mentioned, I took pollen and I put it on the pendulifolium. With this cross, I took the pendulifolium pollen and put it on your Anthurium luxurians.
Oh, that took.
And so that took. And so there are
Oh,
berries.
that'd be
There are
cool.
berries forming. And so exactly, could you imagine a 5-foot long leaf that is like textured like a luxuriance? Like, oh.
Or even if it didn't achieve to be that big, but just was a really skinny luxuriant, like
a skinny luxuriance.
right?
Oh,
Like,
yes.
oh, that could be cool too.
I like that.
And what's also crazy is not only could just one of them do something cool, every single one of them could do something completely differently cool too.
Yep.
Like you could literally end up with 50 random different, combinations of how those gene pools interact, I guess.
And I love, like, we have most of our Anthurium breeding stock over at the Brooks greenhouses. And so I tag, when I go to pollinate an inflorescence, I will put like brightly colored tagging tape on the inflorescence with the date and the cross, so I know what it is. And so I love walking through the greenhouse now, and now that we're doing more and more breeding, it's just like a parade of colors on the bench.
No, not a lie. I can show it to you on my phone. It's not on me right now. But I 100% took pictures of that front bench where a lot of the Anthuriums are, because it's just flags
all
of
different
all
colors.
all the trials and all the dates. It's awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah, and we're starting to compile it too, so that we don't repeat some of the mistakes or that kind of thing. And they're not all, just because we talked about a couple cool ones that did succeed, they don't all succeed too. So definitely something to try if you're,
and having that data. I mean, I'm recording when I do it down to the minute. I'm recording whether the pollen was fresh or stored, like in a refrigerator. And so just to be able to have all of that data going forward for years will help not only myself as a breeder, but breeders to come.
Yeah, absolutely. A Stackish asks, did the Ripsalis ever go to seed?
Oh, yes. Wow, that is a great callback to a YouTube video that we put out probably in March of a Ripsalis cross-pollination attempt that we did. I did it on maybe like 4 or 5 different Ripsalis. I took pollen and just made all these different crosses. And I have 3 crosses that have germinated.
Really?
The thing is with Ripsalis, they start out. So I actually had Zach film these Ripsalis seedlings the other week. I'll see if we can get that video out to tease with you guys. But I mean, they're so small. They're like millimeters big. And so when we went and visited Steve's Leaves, they kind of expressed the same thing because they had grown some of theirs from seed. And I said, hey, mine are like taking a little while. And they basically told me to expect it to take years, usually 2 to 3 years.
At that size?
From seed, from pollination to producing like a 4-inch mature plant, like 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
Holy moly, that's a long time.
So yes, great question. Thank you for that callback. Yes, I did get really cool brand new Ripsalis hybrids that are forming. It's just a matter of babying them for the next 24 months until they're finally, showing characteristics of the cross.
And we can certainly do our best to keep you updated too. We'll try to keep. Let me
They're
know when
so
they
small.
get bigger. But yeah, see, that would terrify me. I'm glad you didn't let me know about that before now, because I don't know. I need a little bit more grace. Once a plant's a little bit bigger than that, then I can make a larger mistake without ending its life. And I don't know that I want to be under the pressure of them being a millimeter big.
Yep.
It seems almost remarkable, though, that they could even do photosynthesis or any complicated plant process at that small.
And it's really cool to think that, I mean, we're growing these seedlings in a controlled setting in a greenhouse in basically perfect conditions, and they're still going to take 2 to 3 years to get to mature size. If these berries had formed and dropped off of the mother plant in the wild, in the rainforest, up in the rainforest canopy, drop down onto another branch where they then get lodged, and then the seeds germinate and then get bigger, who knows how many years and years and years it would take if they even were able to make it to finally get to a large size.
And that's assuming that, whatever would eat it as well could potentially come along.
It doesn't dry out. Yeah. There's so many factors out in the wild. So, I mean, plants are remarkable, but plants, they want to live. Like, plants have a, driving force to live.
Absolutely. No, it's all about making sure you have the next generation ready to go, because you can't be you don't want to rely on yourself for the weight of your species' future existence on this planet.
Exactly.
So yeah, you want to
That's a good way of
diversify
putting
it.
it.
Yeah, you want to
Yep.
diversify that a little bit. That's a really good question, though. Thank you for that, Stack-ish on YouTube. That seems to be a lot of. Somebody else said thank you for acknowledging their wreath and explaining it because they were fascinated by it. But Miriam also asked, where do true pothos originate?
Ooh, okay. So pothos, I believe, are from the Asian part of the world. So Asia, Malaysia, Indian subcontinent, Indo-Pacific islands, type thing. Whereas epipremnum are neotropical, meaning they're from the Americas. So the misnomer of the common name happened because they first knew of the pothos plants, then saw the epipremnum. At that time, didn't know any better, thought that they similarly looked the same. This is the 1800s, mislabeled and called that epipremnum pothos, and now in 2022, it lives on just through cultivation of, common names.
That's crazy. And it also shows, that it can all fail at just one person along the chain.
Yeah.
And you can't really blame them either, because I think about this sometimes, because we talk about quite often how many species exist that we still haven't. 2022, we still haven't made it to the bottom of the ocean and or to all the bottom of the ocean or whatever, right? We haven't made it to all the bottom of the ocean, and we don't know all the living organisms
They
and
say
plants.
20% of the plants on the earth have yet to be discovered. 20%.
But back then,
Oh, I
it
know.
was probably 90. So like if you only had previously, when you went to university and you studied, there were only 45 different ferns. So if you showed up on some other continent, even if your brain was like, by golly, there's 500 different new ferns here, like that just doesn't mathematically seem possible. So you assume that, okay, maybe there's an
Similarly
six.
looks
Yeah,
the
they
same.
look kind of the same. We'll just call it 6 new ones because like the ratio of how many were in the book to how many I would potentially be discovering is crazy. And I'm sure that got easier over time as we realized, and not just in plants either, because we were doing the same thing for fish.
Oh yeah.
That's just a snook or whatever. Now you have all the sub.
That's the field of taxonomy in general, is just that continual forefront of being able to classify these plants correctly.
And the cool thing that we're going to have beyond 2022 is that it's becoming way more accessible to get gene testing. And again, not just for plants, but for found the new sea turtle. Like there's a lot of other options than just looking at the underbelly or looking at the bottom side of a leaf and going, I don't know, it looks green. We have a lot more options moving forward to say, maybe that is its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The field of plant taxonomy specifically has come so far because back in Carl Linnaeus's day, plants were classified based on floral characteristics. So how closely did the flowers represent each other? If you have two different species, but the flowers are different, then they're different. If they look the same, they're the same. Now we're able, as you just mentioned, to take it a step further and do these genome screens, these plastid chromosome studies, and go even further. Maybe the flowers do look the same, but we can run the genetics and see that they genetically are different. So now we will classify them even deeper and further separately.
Right. And more accurately.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, that is what it is. It's accuracy.
That is the goal. Like the plant community and just the average community in general, I feel like gives plant taxonomists a hard time. Like, oh, you got to change it again. But the goal is just to be accurate. As scientists, the goal of science is to just know as much as possible.
And you can't really fault the person at whatever time period for, as far as they knew, without the current technology, this was the explanation.
Correct.
And therefore, it can become scientific fact for 25 years until the next thing comes along and it's refuted. And that's kind of all of science is.
Absolutely.
It will stand until refuted.
Yep.
And now it does not stand anymore as a scientific fact. So it is going to be crazy, though, to see what we learn about the things that are around us that we take for granted.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. Well, I think that's most of the questions. Okay. I know you had some stuff you wanted to show in the greenhouse. Like I said, that's going to be some like test technology here. So if you want to scoot out, I'm going to let them know a little bit about the giveaway events. And yeah, then we'll cut to you in the greenhouse, and hopefully you'll have some things to show, and I'll try to run out there too and maybe see.
All right, stay tuned.
So, all right, Brett's gonna scoot on out of here, but I did mention that I wanted to talk about our giveaway event. In case you haven't seen it, if you're in town in Central Florida, December 20th at 9 a.m. over at our retail location, Gabriella Plant Shop, we're going to be giving away thousands of plants. Last year's success you can find on YouTube as well. Just search Gabriella Plants giveaway. It was by far the most rewarding thing I got to do last year, and it's been something I've been looking forward to my entire year, honestly, as being a highlight. So really, really excited for that because it's a great way to plug into some people that we wouldn't normally necessarily have as guests in our retail store, or maybe wouldn't even, it's not high on their priority list. They're not all plant fans. They're people who maybe, more new at the game. So to be able to just see, and honestly, last year, one of the most rewarding things was like some of the kids smiling, walking out and taking a plant. It was amazing. Zach, you got to yell at me if Brett's ready, but because I can't see the preview, but it'll be, bear with us, a little bit of a test to see if we can pull this off. Yeah, I saw that, but I don't want to keep Brett waiting. Well, I'll answer that when Brett comes back. Gabrielle, I did see your question. I just want to make sure that Brett's here when we answer that. So once he gets online, we should be good to go for it. But of course, if you see anything while Brett's out there, make sure to drop the questions. He won't be able to read them while it's happening. This is still kind of, like I said, beta. But you can certainly drop the question in chat, and I will make him answer it when we get back. So, you see his video? I know. I think he wanted to go all the way to his section. Fun fact, it takes, roughly speaking, I timed it a couple weeks ago, 78 seconds to normally walk from the front to the back. Was it 68 seconds? Something like that. It's longer than you think to go from the front to the back to the greenhouse. Yeah, Zach's saying off mic that's also probably biased because I'm very tall and I need to get somebody else to kind of test it. That's maybe perhaps a little bit shorter than I am, so we can average that together. Keen observation. And if the live thing doesn't work, that's all right. We'll get it next time. Definitely some new technology we're working on. What was that? All right, let's see.
All of you some of these incredible ant plants. Just look at these ant plants. Oh my goodness! So if you're not familiar with an ant plants, or more scientifically known as myrmecophytes. Myrmecophytes, as the Latin means myrma for ant, and phyte as in plant, so ant plant. These plants possess these caudaxes. So caudex is basically the swollen trunk here that work and grow symbiotically and mutualistically with ants, natural colonies of ants in the wild where they're found. And so, like you can see here, they form naturally these tunnels and networks inside their caudex that these colonies of ants will live in. And so then the ants get a place to live, and the plants get nutrients from the excrement of the ants that live inside of it. How crazy is that? And so I have a couple different species of ant plants here. Beckeri. This is Hydrophytum papuanum. This is Hydrophytum pufii. The name just changed. Look at that. And these are Myrmephytum celebessum. And so I want to show you, I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, but can you see that flower there? It's so pretty. It's like a pale blue. That is stunning. That is really, really cool. Here's another one down here. Look at that color. It's like a periwinkle blue. The color of that flower is so nice. And they are just so interesting. Look at that. Wow. All right, I have something else to show you in the greenhouse, but I'm going to cut this back over and go resituate, and then I will check back in.
Sweet deal. Well, we'll definitely, this way we wanted to test it too, was to definitely have the record for whether or not it works. So definitely it's going to be a little bit different. But we're still working with it. That was actually just on his phone, which wasn't the first way we wanted to do it. But it kind of worked. I think it is the audio bitrate setting though. But we'll get that figured out for next stream. You may have to go grab them. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat below, and we'll definitely get that live thing working a little bit better from the greenhouse next time. It's going to be a lot of fun once we get that going. I was telling Zach that we could also hypothetically one day do that from both different greenhouses, so that would also be crazy because we're here right now at the original location on set, which is pretty awesome to have this set up in here. So we're also going to potentially be doing a lot of new things on YouTube in the new year, so you're definitely going to want to stay tuned to our YouTube specifically because we have a lot of new content planned. We were doing some workshops on another platform. You may have attended one of those. If you did, thank you, but we're going to be bringing some of that, or no, all of that to YouTube here in the new year. So there's plenty of stuff to stay tuned to when it comes to the YouTube channel, and we'll have plenty of ways for you to be involved in helping shape what kind of content we make next with what we have. And definitely also, just because it's the holidays, I'm taking the opportunity now to wish you guys happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever else you may be celebrating. Great time of the year for us, just as in what we do every week and stuff. When it's less likely you guys are purchasing plants, we have a little bit less to do here, and because the plants grow slower in the winter time, we do have more time in the winter. So last night we actually hosted our second annual gingerbread making contest. So that was a lot of fun. Man, there was, I do have to say, Alec, one of our greenhouse team members, he went with a completely original strategy, which he made his entire gingerbread house out of, and I don't want to misquote it, but out of a cumulative total of how many graham crackers you think were in Alec's little house? 1.5 pieces of graham cracker. Yeah, so which was honestly creativity 10 out of 10. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, everyone else had monstrosities of high rises built with their stuff. Come on, join in the fun, Brett. Yeah, the audio was, so it worked. We could see really well, but the audio was very weird and choppy. So, but I know of one thing I could probably change for next time, but we'll get it to work.
Learning, yeah.
Exactly. And we, more than anything, we wanted to do show and tell in the greenhouse, obviously, but we also wanted to answer a bunch of questions.
Yes.
So one question that Gabriel asked right before you jet out there was, what are some trends you foresee coming in 2023?
Okay, great question. As I kind of already touched, I think definitely hybrids are going to be big in 2023.
Anything new,
yeah. And I know you've brought this up to me before, but I definitely see carnivorous plants coming on. I see carnivorous plants and bromeliads. I think over the past couple years, the plant community has gotten really big into aroids, and people now have a bunch of aroids in their collection, and there are still plenty of aroids to collect, but I think now those people are, itching for the next thing. And so carnivorous plants, specifically sundews, different pitchers.
See, I wouldn't even go to call that carnivorous.
Okay.
I would say that is special function or special care plants.
Sure.
Because I also think orchids and some of these other things that maybe grow, again, entirely differently from what an aroid is.
Right.
Are, I think, somebody who wants the new challenge. But you were saying about sundews.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's about challenge, not even about carnivorous specifically.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're a plant owner and you've been growing plants since the beginning of the pandemic, that's been years. You've probably already mastered all the plants that you have now.
You know exactly. Every other Friday, I water.
Exactly.
You have it down.
So yeah, you want the next challenge. What can I grow that's a little bit harder, more advanced, and can I grow it to the best of my ability?
And does it do something weird, which I think is what you were talking about with sundew. I think that's going to be the other thing, is like really unique, or just does something kind of unique. You know what I mean?
You mean a specialized plant adaptation?
I almost mean that.
Whoa!
Which
that's crazy.
I was telling them we're going to be bringing all those classes that we were doing on a different platform to YouTube Live in the new year. So they're not going to want to miss that, because you want to talk about your brand new one.
Yes. So the first live stream that we will be doing on YouTube in January is going to be a specialized plant adaptations lecture that I've put together. And so this is going to cover all of those weird, different type of plant adaptations. So it's going to cover corms, it's going to cover caudexes, it's going to cover pitcher traps, it's going to cover the difference between a phylloclade and a leaf. It's going to, if you think that a rose has thorns, it does not. And so you can learn how they don't.
There you go.
What's different about it by tuning in to the specialized plant adaptations lecture.
And I know, like, you worked really hard on it.
Oh, yeah.
But I also think you had the most fun working on that one out of all the ones you've made so far.
Well, because, I mean, you already know, like, I love the weird plants. And so in order to be a weird plant, you basically you've adapted to do something different. And so, yeah, being able to just highlight and go over each of these different adaptations is so cool. It's just a deeper look into, like, the wild, wacky, weird, wonderful world of plants.
Yeah, I definitely think, though, you're right on with carnivorous and these kind of specialized plants being a trend for next year. I also think that, and that this is something that I think really was happening in the second half of this year as well, but I think that there is a lot of people going back to try something that they failed at. A lot of people's first philodendron in the pandemic was something like a pink princess or something else that was highly variable and happened to be right at the beginning of their learning through the hobby.
Right.
And I think that there may even be some very common, not everyday common stuff, but some of the things that you may think will not be around or wouldn't be popular will continue to be popular because people have now worked themselves up to the point where they want to try that again or do that again. The other thing I think that's going to be something that you see continue, and it doesn't help us a ton serving customers primarily online, but it's something we are kind of planning for at the local shop, is I think people are going to buy for the purpose that they're buying. There was a lot during the pandemic, and not that there won't be people adding to collections. That'll continue to happen. But I think that's not the entire plant market. Not everyone in the market wants to have one of everything. They are more likely, we spoke about it earlier, to buy the peace lily for Mother's Day or for the other thing. I think those sales are going to start to rebound and not necessarily be more popular than they ever once were, but that kind of went away. The buying a big palm because you had that corner and that much height to kind of cover up, that was how we always did things kind of pre-pandemic. But when growers can't keep anything on the shelves, you're even harder pressed to find something that's larger. So now that you're seeing growers kind of resume a lot of their planting schedules for pre-pandemic stuff, I think you're going to start to see more variety in the sizes and options people have, whether it's in a hanging basket, it's not in a hanging basket, it's a couple feet tall, or it's really, really tiny. You know, I think you're going to have, even if the species selection stays the same, I think you're going to have a restoration of what we used to see industry-wide, which is it's available in a plethora of different sizes.
Absolutely. So I do think my trend forecast 2023, heard it here, is basically going to be epiphytes, whether it be orchid, bromeliad, or staghorn fern, and then what was it that I was talking about?
Anything with a specialized or carnivorous, anything.
Carnivorous. Thank you. Wow. So sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Carnivorous and epiphytes. That's what
We just crossed an hour, so you're okay. All right.
Woo,
We've been doing this for half a second. Somebody else just commented in that yes, I'm starting to get curious about orchids as well. They've always intimidated me. My mom killed so many growing up. That's an interesting perspective because I grew up with my grandma and grandpa always having them around. In fact, they still occupy some space on a bench here in our main greenhouses. And I've taken a few back over to the one in my backyard just to start messing with them a little bit. Maybe I have the same curiosity, but they don't intimidate me, but they are different. Mm-hmm. And like I just said earlier, like I do think you're going to have some people who want the challenge of what's next. And whether that be, let's buy in something tiny and figure out how to build a terrarium and have something that's like bioactive, or let's get into something that its care or its function are completely different from what I currently grow.
I mean, I do just want to touch on the topic of orchids. As a past president of the Tropical Orchid Society, as a member of the American Orchid Society, I have, dabbled in my fair share of orchids. And so orchids as a word, as a plant, do seem to come with kind of this idea of like, ooh, scary. But orchids, the family Orchidaceae, actually is the largest family of flowering plants that there is, meaning there are the most species of orchids than any other family of flowering plants. And so when you think of scary, hard to grow orchids, that really may just be one type of orchid plant or part of the genus. There are plenty of orchids that can work for a huge wide variety of different growing conditions. So no matter your growing condition, there is always an orchid for you. My good friend Chris Satch kind of has the mantra of orchids are for everyone. And so I'm definitely on board with that I think, everyone can grow orchids. You just got to learn what they want.
Yeah. And I think we've talked a little bit about it. We hope to bring more of those to customers in 2023 as well. We're doing the best to stay on the trends, but I mean, to be honest, that's not something our industry historically does super well. We respond to demands.
That's not who we are though.
But we try to stay ahead of it. And sometimes we get it wrong. I think maybe carnivorous plants last early spring were maybe a year too early if they do end up being super popular this year. We were on it just like a full 12 months ahead. But we even saw that though. And that is something we've talked about on a past podcast. We don't have to go into the whole thing, but that is a challenge to us at Gabriella Plants. And I know we're not the only ones. This happens to everyone that's in our industry. But if you add a new SKU or add a new plant that you want other people to check out, like, they may not know not only how to care, that's a whole other thing, but do they even know how to search for it? Do they know how to find it? It's hard to fully educate somebody on something that maybe their local garden center doesn't even have or isn't offering yet. So there aren't as many community resources and stuff. So once a new thing does exist out there in the market for 6 months, it's always fun to start seeing. Then you get all the content creators and the other people going, hey, this is something crazy I tried with mine. And hey, I grew this one in Leca. And it's cool to see that. But that doesn't always happen if you're the first one because that content or that name was never out there before. So it is challenging to bring something completely new,
I agree with that.
But it is possible. It's just going to take time. Yes. So definitely always keeping our eyes open for what it could possibly be in the future. All right. I think this is a great one to end on because I don't want to keep us here too long, but we'll definitely do this again. Now that we have this set up,
I love this.
We don't have, when's the next stream? It's January. Something. So we have time to do this again at some point. So if you want to see it again, put that in chat and we'll make it happen. But our first question, person who asked the first question, Smarty Marty Plants, is going to ask our final one today. What is your favorite Christmas cookie?
What is my favorite Christmas cookie?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know if you would consider them cookies.
Oh, man. Okay, so now I got to break out my dictionary for what a cookie is.
The, holiday snack that was always made in, by my BB growing up were what we called porcupines. Okay. And basically, it was those crunchy Chinese noodles covered in this butterscotch and peanut mix, and so they kind of like break apart in your
It's
mouth.
like a
and
peanut brittle, but with like
it's like butterscotch instead, and they're like crunchy like a cookie. Yeah, it's peanuts, those like Chinese crunchy sticks, and butterscotch melted up, and
the hard.
It looks like a mound, and you like take. Oh, they're so good.
Okay, I don't know that I'd call that a cookie, but we'll let it. We'll let it pass. We'll let it pass.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't know.
I'm still a fan of the classic snickerdoodle. There's nothing wrong with the snickerdoodle. It's a classic.
I love all cookies as long as they're soft. I don't like a hard cookie.
No, we can agree on that. That is a great place to agree on because I was going to say, if not soft, and if it is destined to become hard, then you must eat before it is no longer warm.
Yep.
Then warm becomes the thing. If you're afraid that it's going to be crusty and too hard, you got to eat it warm. But ultimately, you try to pull it out 2 minutes early so that it's still just slightly gooey on the inside, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. See, this is why we're friends. Besides the whole plant thing,
of course,
all that other stuff we have going on. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this.
This is wonderful.
This has been so much fun. It's awesome to get to do this. Thanks so much for being here, Brett.
Of course.
I know we are excited next time when we can get you to be able to show even more happening in the greenhouse. Thanks for being our little test there.
I loved it.
And thank you guys for tuning in. With that,
from all of us at Gabriel Plants, happy holidays.
Yeah. Have a great rest of the week.
The year.
The year. Well, are we going to be back before then?
Maybe. Stay tuned.
All right. You may never know. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.